All right, guys, let's have a look at these players who are underperforming at the moment. The 187th ranked player over the last 2 weeks is Paul Millsap of the Denver Nuggets. Millsap is back. He's back in the starting lineup. He's playing only 26 minutes a night over this time frame and just 11 points with 7.5 rebounds. Now, Millsap's a long way away from that top 20, top 15 guy he was for the Atlanta Hawks a couple of seasons ago, and I don't think it's unrealistic to think that there's a chance he finishes even outside the top 100 this year. But a guy outside the top 180, these numbers will have to improve. The shooting is way off, a true shooting of under 49%, which is pretty poor. Bad from the line, bad from the field. 15% of his threes he's hitting. He should be able to be significantly better than what he currently is by shooting the ball a lot better. He was 46% from the field last season. He's 48 this year. But over the last month, or since he's come back, he's shooting just 42% from the field. So there's a massive scope for that to improve. His block numbers have dropped. That comes as you get older, and Millsap is significantly older. So I don't expect those to come back to any of those peak type numbers he had. But to me, he is a bit of a buy low guy, and you should be able to get him at a reasonably valuable price. JaVale McGee, another guy who's underperforming. Now, I say this as we record before Tuesday's game where the Lakers take on the Bulls, and I think there's a legitimate chance that McGee does move out of the starting lineup in that game with Ivica Zubats moving in. But say he doesn't. McGee's the 185th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's still playing 21 minutes a night, but the big reason why McGee's numbers were so high, or his ranking was so high to begin this season, was his field goal percentage. And over the last 2 weeks, he's at just 47% from the field. For the course of the season, he's at 59%. So that is a huge, huge drop off. That was what was really driving so much of his value. Now, the block rate has also dropped for McGee. It's not just the drop in minutes. He's gone from 3.6 blocks per 36 to 2.4. So that's a big drop there as well. And both of those things are causing him to be well outside that top 150 range. So if you think that the field goal percentage, which has been over 60% for 2 consecutive years and has always been over 50, will jump back up, which I believe it will, and you think the block numbers will come back up, which again I think they will, then McGee could be a bit of a buy low, but there is an element of risk in that if they do go with that starting lineup change and take McGee out, it's going to hurt his value. But his numbers without LeBron are terrible, and when LeBron comes back, it does open a lot more up for JaVale. So this could be a real interesting buy low type of a scenario for JaVale McGee. Jeremy Lamb is the 162nd ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's playing 28 minutes a night. He just isn't doing much in other areas. 1.5 assists, half a steal, half a block, only half a three as well, shooting 29% from deep. He should be able to be a top 100 player. And if people are going based on this ranking, and again, some of that's as he comes back from injury as well, you should be able to get a decent price in terms of value back in a trade where you're acquiring Jeremy Lamb. Malik Monk looks to be out of the rotation almost entirely in Charlotte. Devontae Graham's minutes have dropped back down. So I think Lamb is in that stage where he's been back long enough, but still not fully back, but that still might confuse whoever has him on their team, and you might be able to extract him as a buy low guy. A player who seemingly always appears on my buy low underperforming list is CJ McCollum, the 153rd ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's playing 34 minutes a night, so that's not a problem. 18 points is fine, but he just does nothing in other areas. 42 from the field, 75 from the line, and they're the two big areas of focus we need to look at for here for McCollum. Now, last season he was a 44% shooter from the field and 84 from the line. He's at 45 and 82 this season, but those numbers at 42 and 75 over the last 8 games have dropped him down considerably, and it's forced those numbers down. The assists are well down this season, not a surprise. They wanted to take him off the ball more. He's never been a guy that gets any sort of steals or blocks. The rebounds are always poor, but they're all fairly similarly in line with what he's done over his career. It's just this real sort of dip he's suffering at the moment in terms of his shooting percentages, especially from three-point range, where he's been a 40% guy for 3 consecutive years. He's down under 34% this season. So while I don't think he's getting back to that top 30 guy he was 2 years ago, I also don't think he's going to remain outside the top 150 where he currently is. The next one, which is it should be pretty self-explanatory if anyone is, again, really tied to rankings, Kemba Walker at number 135. You should feel pretty good that he is going to be better than that. So why is Kemba so low? Because he's still scoring 22 points per game. This is a great illustration of why points aren't everything. He's getting no steals. He's getting no blocks. The assists are 3.7. He's shooting 39% from the field and only 76% from the line, which includes 31% from three-point range. He's the 18th ranked player this season, started off as a top 10 guy that was never going to be able to stick, and we're seeing that at the moment. But what we're seeing here is a massive drop in assist rate, a massive drop in free throw percentage, a massive drop in field goal percentage, and that has all caused a big tumble in Kemba's value. So you're not going to be able to send the 130th ranked player to get him, but can you send the 50th ranked guy? Can you send a hot Klay Thompson, for example, maybe to get Kemba Walker? That's a trade I'd be exploring, especially if people are really blinded by those last 2 weeks' ranks or PR15s, whatever they're called on ESPN. That could be a move that I'd look to make because Kemba will improve from where he currently sits. I feel pretty good about saying that. The next guy we take a look at, the Blue Arrow, Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets, 122nd over the last 2 weeks. He's going to get squeezed a little bit with the return of Gary Harris and Will Barton. I was going to say Isaiah Thomas, but I don't think he's ever coming back on this team, to be honest. Jamal is shooting just 41% from the field, 74% from the line. This is a guy who's like a 93, 94% free throw shooter at times. He's only at 83 this year, but he was at 91 last season. His efficiency is really down as well, 33% overall this year. He was a guy that was just outside the top 60 last season. He's 72nd so far this year, and those last 2 weeks have really dropped down because the efficiency has dropped significantly. And I would bank anything on Jamal Murray's free throws being able to get back over 80%, although his last 27 games, 78% from the line. So that's a little bit of a cause for concern, as is the low field goal percentage. But I'd take that bet that those numbers will come up, and they've got nothing to do with usage, which is always the concern when other guys return. So if you can get that efficiency back up, which should be helped by other guys coming back, then his numbers should be able to improve. Marc Gasol, an interesting one here. He is the 106th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. I do believe there's a significant chance he gets traded. But the reason and again, if a team trades for him, they're not trading for him to play him an 18-minute role. Maybe he doesn't play the 34 minutes a night, but even over these last 2 weeks, he's still only playing 31 minutes a night. But why is he so poorly ranked? Well, he's shooting 42% from the field and just 65% from the free throw line, including 26% from three and only 48% on his twos. Those numbers are all really, really low. He's still blocking shots. He's getting assists. His rebounds are there. His three-pointers are fine, 0.9. It's just that he's not hitting shots. So if you get him back to 46% from the field, back to 80% from the line, then you can add him from 12 points up to 15 points perhaps. You add his threes up from 0.9 to 1.1, and then he's back in the top 50, top 40 type discussion. So this is a really, really good opportunity to buy low on Marc Gasol. DeMar DeRozan's the 89th ranked player over this time. His efficiency down as well, just 40% from the field and a weird 71% from the line on only 4.4 attempts. This is a guy who used to be able to get you 85, 86% from the line and do it on a significant amount of free throw attempts. It hasn't been the case for DeRozan over the last 7 games. And even in comparison, his last 7 games versus the rest of the season, these numbers are well down. He's at 47 from the field for the year and 83 from the line, and the attempts are down from the line as well. 6 attempts for the season versus 4.4. So there's pretty clear reasons why his rank is as far down as it is. Now, he's at 39 for the season. I think he probably can fade a little bit from there, and he has been scoring under 20 points per game over the last month. But focusing on those numbers which don't stand out as something as a common factor for him in his career, that's where you get value in trying to do a trade for someone like DeMar DeRozan. Paul George, a guy who was hanging around the top 5 for quite a bit of time, has fallen at the moment 24th over the last 2 weeks, which is 6 games for George. The minutes are fine because he's playing 38 of them there. He is the 6th ranked player overall as well. But what is he doing in this time to make his numbers drop? Well, 42% from the field and 78% from the line will hurt that. Also, from 4 assists per game over the season down to 2.5 assists is a big negative there as well. So his scoring's actually up. 28 per game versus 26.7 over the course of the season. But it's that massive drop in efficiency, the weird drop in his free throws. And when you're taking as many free throws as what George does, 7.5 attempts per game, if you go down to the average mark, which he's at 77.8, which is about average, anything below that, and you cop a pretty significant hit in your overall number. So I think George can go back to being that top 12 guy, and if you can get him for any sort of third-round talent, I think that's a move that you absolutely have to make. The next side, we look at some overperforming players, guys who are a little bit over their head in terms of their numbers and should drop back down. Blake Griffin, the 9th ranked player, averaging 29, 6, and 5.5 shooting 52% from the field. Part of this is I think the 37 minutes are a little bit unsustainable, as is the shooting, but also the injury risk with Griffin is real. So any sort of top 20 player you could get back from Blake, I think that would be something to pay attention to. Domantas Sabonis is 22nd over the last 2 weeks, playing 31 minutes a night. Miles Turner's missed the majority of those games. He's averaging 19 and 11, and those 31 minutes for Sabonis I don't believe are sustainable, so they're going to drop back down. He's also shooting 96% from the free throw line and 59% from the field numbers, which likely will drop as well, and they are his two biggest fantasy categories over this time frame. He is not a top 25 player. He is probably a top 60 player, not as high as that. His teammate also benefiting from Miles Turner's absence, Thaddeus Young, the 31st ranked player. He's playing 33 minutes a night and shooting an astounding 63% from the field. He's also shooting 43% from the line, so that can come back up. The 2.2 steals are nice, but at 33 minutes, the high field goal percentage, those numbers are likely to dip for Thad. Malcolm Brogdon, I think he's been on the sell high list quite a bit as well. His numbers in terms of shooting have been astonishing. 59% from the field over the last 7 games and 97% from the line. That means he's missed about 1 free throw over the last 2 weeks. I probably should check that number out because it makes it, 28 of 29 from the free throw line over that time. In fact, over the last 2 months, over the last 25 games, Brogdon has missed 2 free throws. And astonishingly for the, this is ridiculous. I didn't even know this. Malcolm Brogdon has missed 2 free throws all year. He is 84 of 86 for 98% from the line. Unless you believe he is never missing again, then there is going to be a drop-off in those numbers. That is an astonishing number from Brogdon, and that's part of the reason why he's the 64th ranked player. That is his number 1 category. Field goal percentage is his number 2 category. If both of those drop back off, which I would have to say there's a legitimate chance that they do, then his numbers are going to plummet, and that is a nonsense type number that he is shooting the free throws at that sort of a level. Julius Randle comes in at number 36 over the last 2 weeks, averaging 21 and 8 in 32 minutes. I think a couple of minutes are probably going to be lopped off Randle here as Mirotic gets back into it. The field goal percentage is high. He's a pretty decent field goal percentage guy, but I just think losing a couple of minutes there could force him outside the top 60 or top 70. And if you could get top 35 or third round talent back for Randle, that would be a move that I would make. Richaun Holmes, he's not even rostered everywhere, but he is a top 40 player over the last 2 weeks. How is he doing it? Well, he's shooting 76% from the field. That is a number that is sure to come down. He's also blocking 1.3 shots and getting 1.3 steals in only 19 minutes. Block rates, which I've continued to say are so sky high that they're nowhere near really in line with what he's done throughout his career. He's also shooting 84% from the line over the last month, and last season he was a 66% shooter. In fact, has never cracked 70% from the line throughout his career. So improvement can happen, but there is also room for regression there in Richaun Holmes' numbers. So if you've got him and you picked him up, by all means, that's great. And if you can con somebody else into giving you a top 80 player back in return, I would absolutely 100% do that. There are just things, and I could be wrong with this, because maybe he continues unsustainable rates the rest of the season. In general, unsustainable rates are called unsustainable for a reason, and that's because they're unsustainable. The 54th ranked player over the last 2 weeks is JJ Redick, who's scoring 21 points per game with a steal. He is doing it on 47% shooting. I think that this elevated usage and 35 minutes a game for Redick are numbers which probably aren't going to be able to stick. I think he's fine as a top 100 guy, but a borderline top 50 player I don't think is realistic. Number 78 is Jordy Clarkson. With the return of Rocket Rodney Hood, his value is about to decrease. He's rostered in 65% of leagues is Clarko, and I don't think that level of production, that level of usage, that level of efficiency from him is something which is going to stick. So turning a waiver wire guy into anything I think is worthwhile. And the last guy I want to talk about is the Undertaker, Dwayne Dedman, who's 87th over the last 2 weeks. I think that it is probably a 60% likelihood he gets traded this season, and if he gets traded, it will be into a lesser role. So getting anything back for him, we're less than a month away from the trade deadline, so you might sacrifice a month of top 100 production, but also be able to get yourself back 3 months of solid numbers. You should be looking to do that. The report did come out today about the Hawks looking to move Dedman, so it might be harder to trade off from him, but I would definitely be looking to do that if I possibly could.